and Ruth be presenting today. So without we'll go straight to the presentation, we do wish to start with Dr. Check. Then after then, we will have Ruth take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kentin. I just missed the last part of your sentence. Could you please repeat? Are you asking me just to introduce myself?
No, you're presenting, so I said you should take the floor in the presentation. Then when you're done, Ruth will take over. I don't know
Okay,
if
all right.
that's okay with you.
Yeah, actually, we do have a common presentation, so we would just do it together. Also, I can start with the introduction. So let me share actually
That's
share
fine.
again my screen. Yeah. Okay. So I hope you are able to see the screen. And thank you again, Tovero, for hosting us. Thank you so much, Esuk and Kentim for the warm welcome and introductions. So as you introduced, Sheikh Ahmadou. You can just call me Sheikh. I think it's easier. I'm the West Africa Regional Coordinator at EED Advisory, and we are so much delighted to be here today to present, to discuss around the strategy for strengthening supply chain for clean cooking technology in Africa. And moreover, we'll be presenting a case study from Kenya. So before that, let me just quickly introduce. So for the presentation today, we would briefly speak about EED advisory, the work that we do, and specifically in the clean cooking sector. And then we would actually deep dive into the thematic of today's presentation around supply chain and the gaps, presenting a case study from Kenya. That part would be actually uh, handled by Ruth Gitri, who is the senior manager at EUD Advisory, and much more versed than I am in clean cooking actually. So let me quickly introduce EED Advisory and the work we do before handing it over to Ruth. So EED Advisory is a Pan-African firm. We are based in we have our headquarters in Nairobi, and we have been funded since 2013. And our range of services include research and data analytics. We do project and program design. We do fund management. We do training and capacity building. And we do all of these services in mainly three areas, which include energy, water or wash, including water sanitation, waste management, and also climate change. So over the past 12 years, we're being able to implement more than 150 assignments in more than 31 countries in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. Uh, you can see the different countries where we had these assignments across Africa. So from West Africa to the East Africa and also Southern Africa. Uh, Below you can have you have some of our clients and partners that we listed, mainly the World Bank, the Clean Cooking Alliance, SNV, NDEV, and uh, many many more clients that we have, and I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with these clients. So coming back to the work we did in energy, different we have sub-thematics, if I can call them like that, in the energy sector. So we do work around productive uses of energy. We do work around uh, data collection for energy, like the MTF, and but moreover we also do work around the clean cooking. So clean cooking is one of our core service, sorry, in the energy sector. We, as you can see in this slide, we were able to implement many assignment and projects and clean cooking strategy in these different countries. So, for example, starting with West Africa, we are currently finalizing the national clean cooking strategy for Sierra Leone, and also in East Africa, we were able to implement various studies for in Kenya with the actually the MEX, the Kenya National Clean Cooking Strategy, also in Somalia, Ethiopia, and all of the different countries that are shown in this figure. So this is just to show the experience that EED has in terms of clean cooking, and that has led us to understand more about the different aspects on clean cooking. On the demand side, on the supply side, but also on all the environmental and the environment and policy landscape. Sorry, uh, but I will not talk much about that. I will actually let my colleague Ruth introducing that part, and also specifically coming onto the supply chain and all the challenges that we encountered during our assignments. I will just finish by presenting the core team that we have at EED in terms of clean cooking. Because EED, we are a team of more than uh, 30 members, 30 staff. So working across the three main areas that I've mentioned earlier, energy, wash, and also climate change. So in terms of clean cooking, we have this core team, plus of course additional members working on the different assignments. But as you can see, we have our managing partner, Morefu. We have also our director, Daniel Wanjehi, who is uh, a key expert in clean cooking. We have Ruth here, as I was mentioning, who is much more versed in clean cooking than I am myself. We have myself, we have Abigail, we have also Simba, our partner that is based in South Africa, and who is also an expert in finance and clean cooking. What I've just forget to mention is that we have our headquarters in Kenya. We have also registered office in West Africa, in Senegal, and also in South Africa. So that allows EED to cover all the sub-Saharan African countries. Now I've talked a lot, and I will let actually the more exciting part to my colleague Ruth. Ruth, over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sheikh, for that introduction. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Tovero Energy for inviting EED to this discussion, and also for everyone who has made time to be able to participate in this webinar. I'm sure we are going to learn from each other, and we'll come out of it more empowered and more knowledgeable. So one, I would like to give like an overview of how we are going to tackle the subject matter. So the topic being strengthening supply chains for cooking solutions. So we've done, we've taken some examples that we can be able to speak around. They are mostly drawn from Kenya and also from Zambia, and this is also from our past work experiences that we've been able to do to implement. And then out of it, we can be able to come up with some conclusions on some guidelines that we can be able to apply to be able to grow, say, to at least grow the sector. So we are very cognizant that even though some say approaches can work in certain countries, we would still need to contextualize, say, to the different countries that would want to explore if these approaches can be able to take place. So just to give a background before we get to the different approaches that we can use to strengthen the supply chain, I thought it would be good to just give you a background in terms of the Kenyan market. And this information also is very much available in the published Kenya National Cooking Strategy, Transition Strategy, that you can access it on our website at EED Advisory, or also at the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum website. So just a brief background. So we see we have about 68.5% of the households that would need to be transitioned to cooking with clean cooking solutions. This would translate to about 9.1 million households as of 2024 when the strategy was being developed. And much of that population would be in rural areas. As you can see, it's 7.4 out of 9.1 of these households are there. So we can also see that because of that, there is the implications that we get to have, say, in terms of public health. We can say that there is quite a high number of deaths that is attributable to using polluting fuels, so household air pollution, and also there is greenhouse gas emissions. And as a country with nationally determined contribution, then this becomes like a key conversation point when we start to see how do we reduce our carbon footprint as a country. There are also other considerations when you start to think about even the job opportunities that can be missed out when we continue, say, to use traditional cooking solutions. So that's just the background. And I'll go to the next slide, Sheikh. Yes. So in being able to tackle, say, the issues that we have in the sector, one of the key things that we did, or at least we tried to do, is to understand the barriers that we have in the sector. So there are various approaches that people can be able to apply when they want to assess the barriers in a certain sector. You can have a list of all the possible barriers, but we found that there's a better approach in terms of being able to analyze the barriers, to identify the hierarchy of these barriers. You might find, yes, there's many barriers that will be in the sector, but then it gets very critical for us to be able to identify the binding barriers, which then the policy makers, the development agencies can be able to prioritize. And once they prioritize, then they can be able to get great changes, say, in the sector. So in Kenya, we were able to do that and be able to identify the priority barriers that would need to be addressed. And these were the three barriers. So the supply gap, and the affordability of the fuels, and also availability of low cost and non-cost alternatives. So if for today's conversation, we'll be majoring on the supply gap that was identified. So we have various contributing barriers to this now binding barrier of supply gap. So there's the high cost of capital in and operation costs for the different, say, suppliers who have to set up either their distribution points or even grow their supply chains to these different areas. And also being very cognizant of some of these areas might not have enough demand in terms of if you're just targeting, say, households. So that having low and unattractive levels of demand for both fuels and stoves then becomes another contributing factor. There's also the question on high cost of, say, importation and the manufacturing costs. So when we look at all those contributing barriers, we're able to identify the supply gap. This approach is quite useful because then it also helps you to understand the key areas that you need to focus on. And I can give an example like with Kenya. For instance, if you look at Nairobi, which is the capital of the country, you'll find that we are almost at universal access in Nairobi. So we have like 82% of the population already using clean cooking solutions. And yet this we are still on the same, say, policy and enabling environment with other regions in the countries that are yet to achieve such type of access. So it gives one can conclude then that it's good then to not just understand the contributing factors, but also the main factors. So when we start to look at these specific regions, then you get to find more contextualized issues. And then that's how we were able to identify like these three barriers as the key ones that we would need to focus on. I'll go to the next slide. So the next slide is a very good analysis that we like to come back to. Remember, we said we have a population of about 9.1 households that do not have access to clean cooking. But one of the things that I would like to highlight is these households that do not have access to clean cooking, they are not uniform even in terms of their needs and the specific issues that that segment would need to that would need to be addressed. That's why we talk about characterizing the market. So we want to understand of these 9.1 million households, where are they located? If you look at quarter one, so we have areas where the customer cannot afford, say, the product, but then they already have supply chains. So if they wanted, say, to purchase LPG, they wanted to purchase, say, any form of clean cooking solution, be it pellets or briquettes or bioethanol, they can be able to find a place where they can be able to purchase, but then they cannot be able to afford that. And a good example of such an area is the low income areas. So in terms of an intervention, then you'd think about how do you address the issue of affordability in such a segment. There's quadrant two, which is a commercial market, and the commercial market, is it has both the customers can be able to afford, but then they also have the supply chains, but then they're still not using the clean cooking solution. So there you get to see that a different type of intervention would be required. So this would require more of a behavioral and communication change. And this would be more on high income urban areas where they have the supply chains, but then they're not be able to, say, transition to cooking with clean cooking solution. So a key focus that we're having today is quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. And quadrant 3, you'll find it's an uncommercial market in that they cannot afford, those households cannot afford those products. At the same time, they don't have supply chains that can be able to address, supply the different cooking solutions. An example would be like a low income rural area. And then the last quadrant is a commercial market, but then they can afford the product, but then they don't have the supply chains in that area. So even as we start to look deeper into the different approaches that have been applied, we can have this in mind, our focus now being quadrant 3 and quadrant 4, where then the supply chains are lacking. We can go to the next slide. And this next slide, we want to look at the first approach, which is to incentivize the suppliers of these cooking solutions. If you remember the quadrants that I've shown, there's a quadrant that has Q3, quadrant 3, where it's an uncommercial area in that they cannot afford the cooking solution, and at the same time, the supply chains have not been there. So if you were to tell, say, a supplier to venture into such a market, it will be very difficult for them to be able to do that based on those factors of affordability is quite low, and also the ability to move to those areas would be a bit costly for them. So there's a program that was started by the government of Kenya through the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, and it was being funded by World Bank. It's the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project. And this project was targeting the counties that have significant challenges in terms of infrastructure. They have poor road networks, communication, and limited, say, financial services. So you find that this market becomes unattractive to the suppliers. So then there was an incentive that would help the suppliers to venture into these markets. And we'll speak about the two approaches that they used. So the first one was the market entry funds, and the second one was the resort-based funding, which is explained better in the next slide. If we could go to the next slide. So the first type of intervention was to give them a pre-deployment fund, which would then assist the suppliers in conducting any activities that would assist them in getting new customers. So you can think of it from the angle of raising market awareness, building their sales networks, or to train their agents. And also the program had a great opportunity of being able to include, say, the women and also the youth in those areas. So to be able to be like the agents of change in these areas. So the first incentive was now is given before the activities for that company start in that area. And the main idea is to build the supply chains and to create awareness of the product. So that's the first one. And then the second incentive was coming post the program. So at the end of it, the suppliers would be given a resort-based financing. So depending on how many stoves you've been able to distribute, then there's a percentage cost of the stove that is reimbursed to you. At this level, I think it was about 37% of the stove that you have been able to the cost of the stoves that you've been able to sell. So that's the first approach. We'll go to the next approach. And in the next approach, so this is a proposal that was made in the Kenya National Cooking Strategy, and it builds up on that first approach that I've explained on COSAP. And one of the things you realize, if you want to attract the private sector to a region, the demand has to be high. So this approach hinges on that. So building a high demand that can be able to attract the suppliers into these regions that are yet to have supply chains for the different cooking solutions. So the suggestion, the proposal is that it's anchored on end users who have high demand for energy for cooking, and they are in locations near, say, households or settlements. So the idea is you get institutions, and by institution we mean, say, schools, health centers, these big consumers of clean cooking fuels. And more so, let's focus, say, on the education centers, because then they would be, in most cases, close to human settlements, as kids maybe will be going to these schools. So there is a bit of closeness to the different schools, to the different households that are there. So in this regard, then, it's to, one, work with the ministry that is in charge of education, say the Ministry of Education, and issue a directive that would require schools to transition to clean cooking. And then as the schools transition to clean cooking, then we are able to create a model that is able to attract the private sector. So we can have hubs of energy demand, in that schools that are close to each other and they require to be supplied with a clean cooking solution, they form a hub. And as the supplier of these solutions is providing the clean cooking solution to these schools, then they are required to also supply to the households that will be adjacent to this hub. There being an incentive for the households that you get to reach to. So the same approach that was used, say, in COSAP. So that would be one. And also ensuring that that schools in the process also transition to clean cooking. So I want to go to the next slide to just demonstrate this further in terms of how that would work out. So these maps, they show how the different institutions and how they interact with the human settlement. And in the next slide, you get to see what we mean by having demand hubs. If we could go to the next slide. So in this next slide, you can see we combine an education center with the population that's around that area. So you can see there are multiple schools. So the schools are the green dots that you can see here. And then there's human settlements, and every dot is about 500 households. So as a supplier, when they are given, say, this hub, and it's going to be tendered out, so it's the supplier with the highest bid or with the most compelling proposal is able to be allocated supply to these hubs. So with that, the assumption being with a high requirement to supply energy in these end users, then it will be a market that will be attractive, say, to the private sector. So the sellers of LPG, bioethanol, pellets, briquettes, all that. So then this would be something that would be interesting for them to venture in when they think about how much then they have to present here. We can go to the next slide. So the next slide builds on being able to promote local manufacturing of both stoves and fuels. And in most places, this is already happening. So it will be scaling that up. So there is the need, say, for countries to be energy secure. And also when you think about all the jobs that can be accrued from growing industries that are able to produce and manufacture fuels and also stoves. So there is the idea around being able to grow energy crops, and these energy crops then can be able to be used, say, to produce. I want to give the example of ethanol. So there's the idea of having outgrowers who are able to grow these energy crops, and then they can have like aggregation centers to also help in reducing the cost of transport. Where, say, if you're a buyer of a feedstock for producing fuel, you have to cater for all the transport costs that have to have you moving from one farmer to the next one. So having like an aggregation center and being able to sell that to the suppliers and the producers of fuel. So that's one approach. There's also another approach whereby it's like a block of farm, whereby then it can be allocated to, can then be able to cultivate the fuel, still a centralized approach, as is also being tried out by, there's an investor in Kenya who is trying to do that in the coastal region, the Giraffe Bioenergy Company, which is trying to also take that approach. On top of that, there is also other work around, say, assembly of electric cooking appliances. And we have some examples here in Kenya, say like Ban Manufacturing, which is also working around that area. And also from an enabling environment perspective, we have these special economic zones whereby we have special economic regulations that allow setting up, say, manufacturing companies in these zones, and then they can be able to enjoy certain form of benefits. For instance, lower corporate income tax, there's zero rating for VAT, exemption from stamp duty, which would then help and promote in reducing the costs of operations. So we'll go to the next approach. And this next approach is drawn from an observation from the analysis that we did when we were conducting the sector study in 2019. And it was noticed that there was a spike in the use of LPG for cooking. It had rose from 0.6 million households to 3.7 over the last, say, 2 decades. And that made us think about what might have caused that huge change. And when we looked at the data, one of the key things that was evident is that the rise was in the last 4 years, as you can see on the graph, that's on your left side. And then there was a spike during the year of 2016. And when we looked at some of the things that had happened, we came to realize that there were some key changes that happened, say, in the enabling environment. And that's why we are saying that approach 4 would now look at addressing some of the enabling environment issues that are constraining, say, the development of supply chains. So one of the things is in 2016, the government of Kenya had zero-rated LPG. And then in 2019 Finance Act of 2019, they were able to introduce an 18% levy cost on kerosene. So this sent a huge message on the need, say, to grow LPG market, and that was also attractive, say, to the suppliers in the sector. There was also a key thing that happened in terms of LPG regulations, where they gave the LPG cylinder exchange pool. And in this, it meant that a household with a specific brand could be able to exchange their cylinder from another brand, depending on how close are they to their household. So that meant if I am in a place, I can maybe just go for 0.5 kilometers to the next place where I can exchange my cylinder without necessarily having to go, say, for 10 kilometers. So that also increased purchase points, exchange points for households, and that somehow also helped in growing the supply chains. And then also building on that, because of that regulation, traditionally in most African countries, or in most countries, LPG is distributed from petrol stations. So with that regulation, it increased the purchase points beyond petrol stations. And now you could be able to exchange your cylinder, say, in your supermarket or in a store that is just close to you. And then lastly, I know this is not, say, related to the policy environment, but there was an introduction of the 6 kg complete LPG cylinders. And here I want to put a caveat, because the idea is not that the smaller the cylinder, the higher, say, the uptake of the cooking solution, because in the same breath, they tried to introduce the 3 kg and the 1 kg cylinders, which did not take off. So it seems like 6 kg was like the optimal size of the cylinder that would work, say, for the Kenyan market. So then all that to sum up, when we look at the growth of LPG, we can see there are some issues that can be addressed from an enabling environment, which would then assist also in strengthening, say, the supply chains for these different cooking solutions. We can go to the next slide, and I know I'm almost now done with the presentation. And this is drawn from an example of distribution of bioethanol. So in Kenya, through Cocoa Networks, so we use it as an example to just show how much went into growing, say, the distribution chains in the country. So they started in 2019. And one of the key approaches, I know there are many approaches that they were able to employ, but just based on the topic of conversation today, they leveraged on the existing infrastructure. So bioethanol, yes, was being produced and used in Kenya previously, but not, I would say it was an upcoming cooking solution. So then there was need to start growing the distribution channels, purchase points, and all that. So one of the things that they applied is to leverage on existing business outlets. So for instance, stores that were very close to the households would then be used as ATM points, whereby they would put their fuel there in form of an ATM machine. And then the households would just come and use mobile money to refill their canters for the fuel. So what that made, or what that ensured, is the last mile distribution was quite reduced. So in a study that we did in 2022, we were able to see that ethanol now was being accessed at the same last mile distance compared to kerosene and LPG, which was 0.4, 0.6, so at around 0.5. So that made it very competitive in that any household could just walk in less than 1 kilometer and be able to refill their cooking solutions. And this was more so in Nairobi and in urban areas. And then they also leveraged on the kerosene storage infrastructure. So they partnered with Vivo, and there they were able to work with them to use their storage infrastructure for storing their fuel. And then that thing that helped them, that helped the company in growing the supply of the solution, is that the person who was stocking the fuel did not necessarily have to have the capital to purchase the fuel. So they already, because the end user would pay directly through Cocoa Network, through mobile money. So that meant, like, if I wanted to be a distributor of bioethanol, it did not require me to raise the initial capital, which is quite high, for me to be able to purchase the fuel and then be able to sell, make my own margins. So you are given a commission based on the sales that would come out of the selling of the fuel. So I'll go to the last approach, which is quite related to the previous one. And this we picked it from the Zambia work that we did. And this is the Imagine Cooking Solution, which is a pellet cooking solution distributor in Zambia. And they had used an approach that would assist them in getting to the end users, but at a very manageable cost. So for instance, they had these lead generators who would then act as they would recruit new households to use the stove and buy the stoves, to use the stove and to sell the pellets. And then they would direct these households to purchase areas, and then they would directly pay the cost, say, to the company directly, still through mobile money. And then they also worked with stockists, so the village pellet stock keepers, who would help them at a cost, obviously, to store the fuel. Then it will be easier to access by households that are close, say, to that stockist. So in both cases, then there is no need for initial capital, which it would be very high, say, for businesses which are starting out, or for distributors who would want to purchase that. So to conclude, so this slide just tries to summarize everything that we have spoken about, which are different approaches that then could be explored further based on the different context. Say, if you're in a different countries, it can be like a starting point that you can be able to query more and query further. So one of it being there's need for supporting local production of both stoves and fuels. So looking at either strengthening the existing manufacturing systems that are already there, or the assembly of the different cooking solutions. And then there's such a huge opportunity in being able to promote the cultivation of fuel crops, and also from a government perspective, trying to look for those favorable economic policies that can attract investment in local production of these clean cooking solutions. And then there's the second approach summary that I would say, which is to capitalize on existing demand, so that then we are able to attract the private sector. So how do you work with institutions to create hubs of high energy demands, and in supplying these high energy demand end users, then there's a requirement to also supply to the households that are within that vicinity. And then there is utilizing the existing infrastructure, which we have seen was key in being able to grow, say, the supply chains in Nairobi for bioethanol. So working with shops that are close to households, supermarkets that are already close to households, without necessarily requiring the distributor to purchase, say, have the initial capital to be able to purchase the fuel to be able to resell. So looking at those issues. And then there's the last one that I would say, which is on improving the policy environment, which in some cases, and I know it will be specific, say, to certain cooking solutions or fuels, then seeing, do we have some barriers that if we address them, then we will be able to unlock the supply chains of the various clean cooking solutions. So I want to pause there and say thank you and welcome any questions that might be there. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ruth. This was really, really educative. I learned so much. So there have been a lot of challenges across various countries in Africa when it comes to the supply chain, and it's beautiful to know that it is every bull with his own horn. Yeah. So the different contexts and the different countries, to a very large extent, determine what kind of techniques that would be necessary to expand and improve the supply chains. Before we take the conversation further, I would like to take the poll questions. Admin, if you don't mind, let's have the poll questions for about 10 minutes. kindly respond to the poll questions. So the poll questions are on your screen. Can kindly just respond to them. Please respond to the poll questions. We'll just be taking this for another 5 minutes. Very interesting responses here. Kindly respond to the poll questions. This is really interesting. I'm saying that women have more access to clean cooking solutions than men. "69% of you think that the cost is the major barrier for clean cooking technologies." This is really interesting. Although a few persons think that we still have poor awareness. Okay, 1 more minute and we'll be done with this session. Thank you. Thank you so much for responding to the poll questions. So 53% of you believe that women have more access to clean cooking solutions than men. Of course, women typically lead decisions about cooking methods and type of wells. 67% of you believe that the biggest barrier for adopting clean cooking technologies is the cost as compared to lack of awareness, limited access, and even cultural preferences for traditional cooking. While the majority of you have received training and awareness of clean cooking programs, this is interesting. The majority of you as well are interested in starting or supporting a clean cooking business. Well, this knowledge about the supply chain would really go a long way to help those of us that are interested in starting clean cooking businesses. Thank you so much, admin. We can take down the poll now. So Jake and Ruth had talked so much about the enabling environment and how it's important to also leverage on existing infrastructures to be able to expand the supply chains across various countries in Africa. They've talked about government policies and how it influences the decisions of the manufacturers, especially for those that want to go into local manufacturing. They also mentioned that local manufacturing would really help to expand the supply chains for clean cooking access and clean cooking solutions in Africa. So we're going to run down straight into the panel session. And immediately after the panel session, we're going to be allowing question and answer for those of us that have questions regarding the presentation and for our experts panelists. So thank you once again, Ruth and Jake. So the first question I have here for you, I think I'm going to direct this to Dr. Jake. So how reliable is the local sourcing of the main raw materials that are necessary for manufacturing clean cooking technologies in African countries? How reliable is the sourcing, the local sourcing for the raw materials that we would need to establish manufacturing clean cooking technologies in Africa?
Thank you, Esuk. That's a very good question indeed. And as my colleague already mentioned, one of the key strategy, or even maybe the first strategy for strengthening supply chain, is to be able to develop local production. So your question comes right in, and I would say that this this would actually depend on the type of technology that you want to build. If I may explain myself, if you're taking, for example, the e-cooking, Ruth mentioned earlier that the strategy, for example, in Kenya is to have like sorry, how do you call that again? Not a manufacturing, but more like an assembling point, because
Assembling
it would
plants,
be
yeah.
exactly, because it would be very hard to find the right materials to actually build the e-cooking technology. So if you are taking, for example, just the case of e-cooking, that would be very hard. But I believe for the rest of the technologies, if we, and mainly speaking about like improved stuff, the example has shown that we can actually find the materials in and I mean in locally. We have seen the example. If I'm taking the example from Senegal, we are building the main ICS that we have in Senegal. They are built from clay, and also it's either iron or some type of metals, depending on the type of ICS. But all of that is being found locally, and it's also sustainable, and it's also a quite solid material. It's also the same. I've seen the same case for for ICS in East Africa, for example, Rwanda and some other countries where they have the materials locally. So it's more sustainable to find and have the materials there, and it's also the materials is also reliable.
So the reliability of the raw materials is most largely dependent on the technology that they want to manufacture. And this has a lot to do with the environment where the manufacturing plant is situated, if I get you correctly. So, for example, if we're talking about Senegal, we should be focusing more on ICS than we would on electric cooking, because, or if we want to go into electric cooking, we need to think of more assembling plants than it is of manufacturing. Ruth, I don't know if you have a contrary idea to this.
I quite agree with that discussion. There is a lot of contextualization that would be required. So in terms of regions, as Sheikh is saying, in terms of also the type of cooking solutions. And also the bit that I would add would be around we can see strides in ensuring that then availability is consistent. So like the example that I've given, say, there are entities that are trying to see are there ways that they can be able, say, to grow crops for fuel production, and also some other types of cooking solutions, say like the briquettes, for instance, they have multiple sources of feedstock that can be used to produce the fuel. So there is approaches that are being used, say, to still build on what is existing in the continent.
Well, do you think that there are cost barriers to these raw materials that would most likely discourage manufacturers?
I would speak more. The straight answer would be I would say yes, because then most of this would be acquired at a cost. So even like the people who are trying, say, to grow the energy crops, there's a lot of costing that would be required in being able to put that into action. So that's one. And also in some cases we get like competing use of this feedstock. So for instance, if you want to say use sawdust production of, say, briquettes, you find that then it has more other competing issues here and there. So the more the competing issues go up, I would imagine also the cost would go up. So trying to see which other types can we be able to focus on, for instance.
Okay, so if the cost is a barrier, of course, I don't think that we should ignore the fact that we have issues around skilled labor, access to machineries, especially for local manufacturing. So do you think that the access to machinery, skilled laborers, financing as major challenges really influences the local manufacturing of clean cooking technologies, as well as the supply chain? We can't talk about manufacturing. We can't talk about the supply chain without including the manufacturers and the distributors. So what do you think about skilled labor for the manufacturers, people that would be interested in wanting to manufacture, or the access to the machines that they would need, for example, to make the pellets and all of that? Dr. Cheek, this one is for you, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Again, that's a very good point that you're making. And I think you even answered to part of that question, because having a skilled labor is actually very important, specifically if you want to build a sustainable local production. And it goes actually both for the manufacturing and also the distribution. Because if you really want to build, like, let's say, a sustainable, let me take again this case for ICS in Senegal. When we were introducing improved cook stove, the type that we have in Senegal. The idea was to use raw material that can be easily found in Senegal, and that like say the local manufacturer could easily replicate, so that we don't have, let's say, just one company that is able to manufacture the ICS. So that strategy actually helps you to have like uh, to solve at least one part of the affordability cost, because you are building on materials that you can find locally and that are like really easy to find, and I would not say cheap but affordable. And also you are building and also training local actually artisan. They might not even be specialized before in improved cook stove or clean cooking, but just some local artisan that know how to build improve cook stove, and associating the clay and all of the design that we have for the improved cook stove. So that strategy, and I'm speaking about like 20 years ago since we started that program, that led actually to the sustainability of these type of food stove. So we have the local manufacturers that are able to replicate and scale this technology, and you are also building on the local distributors as well. So yes, to answer to your question, that's a very important point actually.
So what do you think would be the best way for us to be able to scale the supply chains and to provide solutions to these major challenges, especially with a skilled labor force? Because I think that if we don't have enough hands that can produce sufficient quantities of technologies that can be spread across Africa, we may be struggling with creating awareness and not having products to distribute. So what do you think are the best ways to handle these challenges?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of 2 points, and now I will not maybe take the same example as Senegal, because it might be definitely, I would not say the easier one, but if you are trying to take more tricky example, uh, if you want to build, let's say, a supply chain for briquette stove or pellet stove, or even the example from ethanol from Cocoa Networks, you because you know you don't have like a labor force that is already skilled to actually build this type of improved cook stove or technology. So you need capacity building first to be able to have this local labor force, so you can actually rely on them uh, and have a sustainable supply chain. But also the second point is on the and because Ruth also mentioned that it's about the availability, how you can be really close to the population, because if you only have, let's say, one supply plant, one manufacturing plant that is also acting as a supply, uh, let's say, supply point, it would be really tricky for you to be able to reach to the population. So you also need to think about the availability, how you can build this local selling point or distribution points, same as the Cocoa Networks did, so that you are able to reach out to the population.
Yes, especially to the very, very last mile users. That's super important. But then how do you think that governments and partners can really support to scale the supply chain for clean cooking solutions? Ruth, this one is for you.
Yes, thanks for that question. So this is in regards to the local manufacturing bit.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, so there are various approaches that I've seen being applied in the sector. So one, it's through research. So I know of certain organizations that have been very keen on developing, say, manuals for production of given cooking solutions. I'll give an example with UNIDO because I was part of that assignment. So they had so they wanted to understand the whole landscape of briquettes, and they looked at from manufacturing all the way to the end users. And one of the key things that they looked at was developing manuals for production of briquettes. So there's that approach. So that's one. There is also another approach I've seen, say, development agencies such as, say, SNVJZ working with the associations, say, for biogas to help them in growing their capacity to be able to build on the ability to produce, say, good biodigesters or high quality biodigesters. I've also seen research around the electric cookers by the various actors that we have in the sector. So either promoting high quality standards for the cooking solutions that are being distributed within the country or within the continent. So coming up also with manuals from a point of use, from a user's perspective, because in most cases we get to not consider sometimes the user insights in terms of the different cooking solutions that we are getting. So then being able to support that even from a development point of view in terms of being able to support such studies from a finance point of view of the different, say, locally produced appliances or assembled appliances to be able to understand are there instances that would need to be corrected or to be advanced so that then they are more responsive, say, to the user needs. There is also a very key one, which is in terms of capital. I think for any company that would want to even start perfecting the different designs that they have, then they would require, say, money, they would require capital to be able to do all that. So also that's like another point of intervention that the development agencies can be able to come in. And also they can support, say, the lobbying of conducive policy environment in terms of, say, if you're starting up a company in manufacturing, there are some tax incentives that can be provided to you so that then you're able to grow your business. And when your business now peaks, then you can be able to see how do we slowly introduce, say, the different taxes that will be in a country. Back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ruth. That was very insightful. But then we've been talking a lot about manufacturing and raw material sourcing. Let's talk a little bit about storage and warehousing for clean cooking products and fuels, especially in Africa. What systems do you see that already exist from all of the researches and projects that you have carried out? Ruth, this one is for you.
Yeah, thanks. That's a very good question and also a key point of consideration. There are various approaches that can be used. For instance, when you think, say, about LPG, if you need to scale up, then there's need for investors to come in and be able to even start to think about storage. And even how do you then also create, say, all these distribution chains from these storage points to these other places. So I would say it's capital intensive. It's also something that requires more more specifications in terms of the specific technology that you're using. I think the example that I'd given was for the emerging cooking solutions who are working with, say, locals who would have, say, a storage, and then they can stock at a commission for their fuel, and then they can be able to distribute that. But in terms of large scale, if you need to, say, do it large scale, then that's a point of investment that would be very key for the companies that would be able to do that. I've also seen some also use, say, the village groups, the village banking groups as a point of contact, not necessarily say to store the fuel, but as a point of contact for the end users. This will be my insights into it.
Okay, Dr. Chik, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, actually, I would like to take the example when we were drafting the clean cooking strategy for Synergis Africa company in Senegal. The idea for the objective for the company was to build to be able to manufacture pellets fuel and distribute them for commercial clients. The let's say the main criteria that we would take into account in terms of the feasibility, technical feasibility, but also financial feasibility was the location of the plant, because this is targeting commercial clients. You needed to you were to supply these clients yourself. So we would have like just one manufacturing plant and one supply point, and the main factor for the technical, like I say, technical and financial feasibility was the location. That would have been the key factor because transportation for the raw material to manufacture the pellet would highly depend on the location, and also the transportation cost for the distribution would also be the key factor for the financial aspect. So that lead also in, if you are speaking about commercial clients and let's say industrial plant, the one of the main factor would be the location, and here also associating the production and also the distribution.
Well, do you think that this method that was used for Synergies Africa, was it timely enough? Was it adequate enough for timely supply?
Yes, but this was, like I said, this was for particular type of clients, because we were speaking about commercial clients that would require, let's say, high amounts of pellets. You were not like having a strategy to target, for example, households or a really distributed market. This was like a very specific markets, and also having high amounts at the same time of cooking fuels that you would deliver, that you would supply. So it made sense for that case specifically. But I would say that strategy would make sense for if you are taking just a normal, let's say, standard clean cooking company that is targeting a household or at least a distribution market like Rus has presented, for example, for Kenya.
True.
Yeah.
But I would like to talk about the risks around warehousing and the costs, especially for remote areas and also climate sensitive areas. I'm aware that LPGs are climate sensitive when we talk about the rise and fall in temperature. So what strategies do you think that can be adopted to help reduce these risks around storage? Dr. Cheik?
Yeah, that's a very important question, and let's say actually the most tricky one. when it comes to clean cooking, if we apply because let me again take the example from some of the West African countries, like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, for example. If we taking LPG, this is warehousing and storage is very important for both technical and also financial feasibility and profitability for the LPG suppliers. But so it's a mandatory even in Senegal when we are having the first LPG suppliers back in early 20s. The requirement was to have let's say a storage facility because there would be like this one main company distributing the LPG. So you have this storage also acting as a refilling station. So that was mandatory. But now, if you're taking the example of let's say improved cook stove, still for in Senegal, taking the Senegal example, for many of the local suppliers, they don't have a storage unit, or let's say a big storage unit. So they would only produce a maximum of a dozen of improved cook stove. So they don't worry. So they don't have to worry about the storage. And whenever they have like whenever they have the a demand for more improved cook stove, they would just build the number of improved cook stove that they need. Because in that case, it makes sense to not have a warehouse because having that is also implies also more cost, more operating costs. And if we considering the local manufacturers or distributors, they cannot afford to have this additional costs.
I see that Michael Kiza has his hand up. Michael, you have a question, and the floor is yours. You could just unmute and speak. Michael Kiza, do you
Okay.
have a question?
I was looking for where to unmute. I think you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you
I was
now.
looking for the unmute button. Somebody gave me the microphone. Yes, I'm from Kampala. Thank you for this presentation. Apologies, I came late. I came quite late into the discussion, so I didn't hear some of the points discussed. But my attention was drawn to the quiz, the questions that you raised. And especially question number 1, the issue of women having access to clean cooking. I think my issue, I know quite a number of women are disadvantaged down there, those in the lower cycle of the communities, the low income women, some who are jobless. I think we need to frame some questions or discussion around the working class women, who I have issues with them in that they are suppressing the lower class women, especially their house helps. I've had a lot of, I'm so passionate about clean cooking and I talk about it every opportunity I get. I find many elite women are still subjecting their families, especially the house helps, including their children, to dirty cooking fuels because they feel the house helps are not competent enough to use the clean cooking technologies. So, for example, they would never allow the house helps to use gas when they are not at home. They should use charcoal because they say they are going to burn the house. When it comes to electric pressure cooker, which is really ideally very safe, you find they're saying, I'm the only one who can use this, and then no one should use it when I'm not at home. And so this is actually taking us back. And everyone, including them, including myself, at one point had to learn how to use gas, learn how to use electric pressure cooker, learn how to use induction cooker. But they are not willing to give adequate training to their house help, and therefore subjecting them to continue using charcoal. And when they are not there, their children are also at home with these house helps, and they are exposed to the smoke from charcoal or from firewood, but mainly from charcoal. So you ladies in the boardroom, I really appeal to you. And I always, this is not the first time I'm talking, I appeal always when I have this opportunity that the ladies in the boardroom should change their minds. They're not always saying women have more, men have more access to clean cooking. No, the women who have access to clean cooking are denying other women access. Thank you.
That is very true. I really want to support this because I think that when we teach people how to use these technologies, it actually expands the access to cooking with cleaner fuels. You don't expect someone that does not know how to use an EPC to cook with an EPC. And this is one of the reasons why cooking demonstrations are actually very important. But most importantly, women in the boardroom on this call, please teach your assistants how to use the clean cooking technologies that you have in your kitchen. I see that Prince Nathaniel has his hand up. You can have the floor now, Prince.
Okay, what do you know?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, first, I appreciate the organizers of this very call. Indeed, sustainable development must come to stay. If the United Nations and the entire countries is working day and night to actualize SDGs, I think corporate bodies and individuals like us should also be in support of SDG. Clean cooking must be adopted in every household. And how can we do this? To those of us that are in the field or that know what green cooking means, sustainable cooking means, we should be taking upon ourselves to sensitize families. Now let's come home. I want to really look at women deciding what to cook, being the major cookers, the major users of the kitchen or the cooking utensils. Like the last speaker said, that in some home is only the mother or the adult person or people that only make use of this equipment, whereas the house help and the children, they are not permitted to touch. Yes, that one is true, but I'm not going to that side. That side should be looked into. My side is, I think I've done this sensitization of clean cooking in several locations, and a lot of people, especially the women, seems not to understand the current transition of where we are moving from and where we are going to. And I come to realize that a lot of them believes in whatsoever the religious leaders said. Now, my suggestion or my opinion, I'm saying that platform like this should include religious leaders in, like, each time that we want to do sensitization or teaching session, religious leaders should be invited, because if this is well known or understood by a religious leader will now say it to his or her followers, maybe the members. I don't know if you understand what I mean. I once
Yes.
talked to somebody, and then somebody was telling me, I've not heard this in my church. I said, no, it's not everything you hear in the church. So somehow it sounds funny. It will sound funny, but this reality is reality. So I think religious leaders should be involved in this particular business of energy transition. That's my suggestion, man. Thank you very much, my leaders.
Thank you so much. That's a very, very critical point. Over here in Nigeria, a lot of persons give so much reverence to the opinions of their religious leaders. Someone once told me, well, I was in the church last week and the pastor did not talk about this, so I'm not going to do this. You invite someone for an activity and they want to hear that, oh, the imam has endorsed it. The sheikh has endorsed it, the pastor has endorsed it. A lot of persons believe so much in the opinions of their religious leaders. There was a time Tovero Energy was conducting a survey, and we got to realize that the influence of these religious leaders in smaller communities, especially in remote areas, cannot be overemphasized. They rely so much on what these people tell them. And I think Mr. Prince just made a very, very salient point, especially for those of us in Africa. Ruth, do you have any contribution to what the last two speakers have said?
Yeah, thanks for those two comments. I'll start with the last one. So one of the things that is quite critical is also in how the messaging, the message that we send, say, to the households. Because in most cases, say, like us who are in this boardroom, if we might be so much caught up with greenhouse gas emissions and all that. But then when you think about, say, my grandmother who is in a rural place somewhere, even things to do with greenhouse gas emissions, it's not something that they resonate with. So getting the key message that can be able then to be communicated to households to encourage them to transition to clean cooking. In some cases, we've found that if you, for instance, give them the benefits that they get to have as a household. Say, for instance, if you think about charcoal use, for instance, if you're in an urban area, you're buying every other time charcoal, your total cost at the end of the month is higher than someone who was buying, say, LPG in lump sum. And I know there's a lot of conversation around there in terms of availability of income and all that. But then tackling it from that perspective, showing them what benefits do they stand to gain as a household. If you think about even at our household level, some of the key things that you have acquired, they are mainly inspired by the benefits that you get to accrue as a household. Are you saving on costs? Are you reducing, say, a certain form of illness? So the type of messaging that we apply when we are communicating to this household will be quite critical. The issue on awareness, the use of, say, being afraid of if you're not available, if there's no adult, say, in the house, the people who are left behind becoming a difficult issue for the people. I want to give an example. There was a study that we were doing in Zambia. And so one of the things that you realize with LPG in Zambia and also in most of the some of the Southern African countries is there's the assumption that LPG is a safety, has its own safety concerns. So you'll find that most of the conversations, and we looked at this from a data's perspective. I think the data that we had analyzed for a multi-tier framework energy survey that is done by World Bank, they had done it back in 2017. So we realized that in urban areas, less than, I think it was like 0.1% of the households were using LPG, and these LPG users were only in male-headed households. So when we went and we were doing a focus group discussion, the women who attended the discussion elaborated on that further. They said for them, even when themselves are in the house, they were not comfortable in having, say, LPG as a cooking solution in the house. So for them, they viewed it as a bomb in the house. So just to say that I understand from what point they are coming from, but also then putting this caveat that then there is need for the demonstrations, as you mentioned. How do you use, say, LPG? How do you use the electric pressure cookers? Some people even, they just hear pressure cooker and they just associate it with the traditional ones that we used to have. I don't know if you had those ones, the ones that they used to build up pressure and all that. But then now the technology has evolved. So that form of education to the different participants and even targeting the different participants in that house. It's not just the women, but also the assistants at the household, even like the children who are of age of cooking, and also targeting, say, also the men, so that then they get to understand all these benefits. So I agree with all that. It's more of then how do we approach in terms of providing the solutions.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for that contribution. But away from all of this, I think that we've sidelined the distribution chain, where we talk about regional trade and cross-border supply. So how can regional trade and cross-border supply be used to stabilize or lower distribution costs in African countries? Ruth? Ruth, can you hear?
Yes, I
Okay.
can hear you. So I would say there will be a lot of learning across, say, the different countries. So seeing what can we apply, say, in terms of lessons that can be borrowed from the different regions. So that would be one. We've also seen companies that have been able to grow beyond their country of operations. So they've been able to like grow their distribution channels to other countries. So that would also be key points of engagement in terms of us understanding then what would we need to scale to such level of engagement. And then also I'm aware that there are some times or some instances where maybe then issues to do with, say, policy and all that would then need to be looked into to ensure that then there's that cross like a cross exchange in terms of like people from different countries can be able to sell to other countries. So I would say it would be very specific to a context and being able to see then what else can be addressed at that level.
So, Dr. Cheik, what retail models do you think works best for clean cooking technologies in Africa?
It would be very hard, I think, to just speak about one model, I think. But the most important to me would be to consider the key aspects about the retailing. And I will start first with the accessibility, or availability, especially to the last mile population. You need also to think about empowering the local actors. If you're thinking about the local retailers, how you can skill them up, and how you can do some capacity building around the way they supply, the way that they can learn about the technologies. If, for example, the technology is involving some after sale service, how you can really have capacity building around that. So these local actors, these last mile distributors, are able to actually provide these after sale services. So I think to make a retail model really sustainable, you have to think about all of these aspects. And if you find the model, and also each model would need to be contextualized. Maybe the one retail model or best model in Kenya might not be the one that would work in Senegal or Nigeria. So you have also to contextualize that. But I believe that if you take into account these factors, the accessibility, empowering the local actors, and having a sustainable supply model, that you would actually reach to this best retail model.
Thank you. I really, really support that. It's very important that whatever retail models that we are going to adopt should also include after sales services, especially when it has to do with maintenance. But then it would be an abomination to talk about sustainable development and clean cooking without referring to end-of-life product handling and circular economy. And this one is coming for you, Ruth. So do you know of any working models in Africa for collecting, recycling, and safe disposal of cook stoves that are already worn out gas canisters, biofuel waste, and all of that?
Thanks for that question. For now, I'm not aware of, say, such an organization, but I know like the national environmental management institutions will be looking into that, especially now that we are starting to also speak about, say, the electric waste that might be coming from cooking with electricity. So I would need to look more into that for me to have a straight answer on that.
Oh, okay. Dr. Sheikh.
Yeah, actually, I aligned also with my colleague Ruth. But I know it's also an important question that is being debated now, especially if we're talking about electric cooking. Because the one thing that we see if we're talking about, for example, the improved cook stove in Senegal that are made out of metal, and whatever the metal that we're talking about here, we always find some of the waste pickers that would actually pick the metal from the improved cook stove and sell it so that we can actually recycle the metal. But if you're talking about e-cooking, that's a very I think that's a very important point that people are still discussing and globally about e-waste. And yeah, we haven't found yet the solution, but I believe this is something we would find in the coming years.
So do you think that there are opportunities in Africa, future opportunities, low-hanging fruits that Africans can actually use to buy into end of life and circular economy around clean cooking technologies?
I mean, yes, definitely we can. I'm not sure if there is low-hanging fruit, but there is definitely opportunities for Africa for the uh, for the products, the end life products around clean cooking, and especially in electric cooking. But like I said, this is a non-going discussion or debate, but we need to position ourselves early so that we have all the infrastructures and all the strategy to think about that.
Okay,
But
so
I
okay, go ahead,
yeah.
Patrick.
No, I was just going to say that I would not be able to really to provide or to speak about the low-hanging fruits at this point. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm also of the opinion that we should have more Africans invest in life cycle assessments of the products that they would want to manufacture. It's one thing to say that you are preventing the emission of carbon. It's another thing to say that by the time the lifespan of your product has expired, what happens and what's the effects of your product after its lifespan. So I also think that we should begin to invest a little bit more in life cycle assessments, especially when we want to go into the local production of clean cooking technologies. But notwithstanding, Ruth, how can feedback from users be integrated into product improvement, service delivery across the supply chain?
Thank you for that question. I think one of the key things would first to have those user insights at the point of developing the product. So once the manufacturers have a product that they want to distribute, just having that feedback from the end users when they try the different cooking solutions would be one point of interaction that would be very key. And also continuous collection of data on the same. I want to give an example still of the bioethanol stove. So if you remember correctly, it started with like a one burner stove. And then you can just see how it has evolved with time, just by just having to listen, say, to the market and hear what people are saying. So people would come back and say, we need a 2 burner so that I can be cooking one meal on this one burner and then another meal on this other burner. So I think there will be continuous conversations on the same. I've also seen the same in the electric stoves conversation. So you'll find that they are very keen on feedback from the end users. Now they have like these EPCs that come even with manuals for preparing local dishes. So it's going to be a continuous process whereby you're constantly collecting data as a producer of these stoves to just get to understand are there new additions to the stove that would be quite useful. Even these competitions that are taking place for the different, say, cooking solutions, especially in the cooking with electricity, whereby they're able even to identify which are the key points or key accessories in this cooking solution, electric cooking solution, that is desirable to the end user, or the user rates it as a high accessory in terms of meeting their needs in the cooking area. So I think those will be quite useful. So those continuous interactions with the end users, continuously be able to pick what the end user is saying in terms of those products. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Constant evaluation of the impact of our projects are very, very important to research and development for the improvement and upscaling of the supply chains for clean cooking technologies. So I don't know if I'm getting your name correctly, Fonahami Idris. He says that the major limitation of transiting from dirty fuels aside cost is unwillingness of sponsors or donors to support ICS and LPG as a step towards clean cooking. Those on open fire should be supported to migrate to ICS or LPG, and thereafter EPC and induction. And this is very, very true. There should always be a transition fuel, because we don't expect to transition, to move all the way from charcoal to electricity, especially for rural areas where we're not even sure that they have access to electricity. So taking it bit by bit is really, really important. Thank you so much for that contribution, Fonahami Idris. With this, we've come to the end of the panel session. It was really, really engaging. Thank you, Dr. Cheik. Thank you, Ruth, for how much knowledge that you have imparted. I learned so much, and I am very sure that the audience as well learned so much from the both of you. So I'm going to go ahead to do the closing formalities. It has been a very interesting session here with everybody. And I'm going to be talking about Tovero Energy for a little bit. And so Tovero Energy is a clean energy company situated in Africa as well as Sierra Leone. And we're not just into clean cooking, we're also into electronic waste management across Africa, especially in the South region of Nigeria. We are also into research and development for clean cooking technologies. We do so many other things, from engineering services up onto energy education and advocacy. And later on in the year, we are hosting the 3rd edition of the Africa International Conference on Clean Energy and Energy Storage. It is built to be held in the University of Port Harcourt, Rivers State, here in Nigeria on the 25th and the 26th of September 2025. For previous editions, we've had participants from all over the country, both all over the continent, both virtually and physically. And we have seen a lot of improvements, a lot of researches that are mind-blowing. In the last edition, we also had a clean cooking demonstration, and the results we got from the viewers of the clean cooking demonstration was amazing. It was very, very exciting to know that there were people that did not know that electric cooking was way cheaper than cooking with firewood. I'm not just talking about the health impact, we're talking about costs, we're talking about efficiency, time savings, and we had the opportunity to prove all of this to them. So we're inviting each and every one of you to ICES 2025. There's also going to be another session for clean cooking, for those of you that are super interested in clean cooking, and other aspects of energy transition would be discussed during the conference. So you are available, you are invited to register. You can attend virtually, you can also attend physically. The link will be shared in the chats for you, so you could just go ahead to the website, learn more about the conference as well as register. You can also present your papers. We have opportunities for researchers to present and publish their papers with us. We're also inviting you to the next episode of the 54 Sparks, where we'll be talking about strengthening regional cooperation and partnerships for clean cooking in Africa. So the next edition of the 54 Sparks will be holding in August, and we are super excited to have you on board to engage in that conversation. We also have the Cook Clean Advocates program that Tovero Energy is hosting, and we are super excited to invite you to come and be an advocate of clean cooking in Africa. We are saying no to dirty fuels, and as such, we are teaching all the trainees or people that will be applying for this program about clean cooking. We'll be talking all the way from enabling environments to the distribution chains. We'll be talking about policies, we'll be teaching you about developments, research technologies, everything that covers clean cooking technologies and implementation within Africa. Of course, you have to be eligible, and then you have to have a basic understanding of SDGs. So we are inviting you to register and join the Cook Clean Advocates program that is being hosted by Tovero Energy. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say from the management of Tovero Energy. Our CEO is here. It's an honor to have you with us, Ma. I can see Engineer Anthony is here as well, and he's trying to speak. So you are muted if you are trying to speak.
Why is you muted?
No, you are not.
Okay.
So we'd like to have closing remarks from you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Peace, for a very insightful session. I really got a lot from the session today. And thank you also to Dr. Jake and also Ruth for joining us for this session. We really appreciate your time, and we can see or we feel the expertise that you brought to this session, and I'm sure our audience will agree with me that this has been a very insightful, and it has all the impact we could ask for in this webinar. So thank you very much, and I hope that in future we can still have more of these collaborations, and especially the next edition that we are talking about regional partnerships, how to strengthen partnerships within the regions in Africa. Like I keep on saying, Kenya, as it is right now, or the East African region in Africa, is doing very well in clean cooking and even access to clean energy as it is right now. So these learnings from the different regions will help kind of for Africa to achieve the goal of the SDG 7 goal that pertains to clean cooking as we are discussing now. And so maybe we'll take the discussion further from here, Jake, to see how this can be achieved. And away from that, thank you very much again for not just to panelists and presenters, but also to our audience member who joined the session today. Like we keep on saying, it starts with each and every one of us. Whatever you can do in your own locality, within your own circle to influence decisions around clean cooking. Like the survey have shown, and from what one of the interventions colleagues said was that it's not just about the money also, but who is talking to who, because as it is right now, some people listen to different kinds of people for different kinds of things. So wherever we are able to influence a decision on moving from dirtier fields to cleaner ones, it could be in terms of finance, it could be in terms of general knowledge about it. Let's strive to do that, and we hope that we build and sustain a world for not just ourselves, but more importantly for the younger generations that are coming. So thank you again, and we hope to see you again next month when we'll take up another topic. Thank you, and bye from here. Peace over to you. Oh, I think Peace, are you still there? Esuk, are you there? Okay. Since she's not here, allow me the honors of ending the session for today. Thank you again. Jake, did you want to say something?
Maybe just to thank you again for this opportunity to really be part of the 54 Sparks webinars, and again congratulate you for this amazing initiative. We were really glad to be here, and we really hope the discussion was insightful for the participants. And yeah, we are really glad to engage further. Maybe just I can just leave the last word to thanks.
All right. Ruth, any parting words?
For me, it's just to say thank you for the opportunity to be here, and also thank you for everyone who has been able to listen to us till this point. We want to say thank you. I have great hopes in terms of the cooking sector. I think we'll make major strides with such conversations, exchange of information through such platforms. It will be very key. So thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you very much. And just for emphasis sake, the 54 Sparks, the name, I think it covers the 54 countries in Africa. So we are trying to see how we can have a consolidated voice in when talking about clean cooking in Africa. So thank you again, and please do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye from here.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a nice
Bye.
day. Bye.